Thank you, Amy Steinberg. And I love that song because she talks about being exactly where we need to be and that we are absolutely held in the hand of God, if you will. And so I'm really excited about this wonderful announcement that we started our service with. This is really stunning and wonderful for this community. And this technically is my last talk with you as your spiritual director. And I'm so glad that you could be with us either in the house here or on Zoom or YouTube or one of those other places on the interweb that we have been using over these last year and a half to try to be in this new normal of being together, either in person or someplace else. And I'm with Elijah. I'm really appreciating this call to pause for guidance, because there is so much that is happening right now as we move through this transition, and it's that pause for guidance that helps me to stay grounded, to be able to recognize what it is that needs to happen in front of me. I've had several people ask me if are you excited? Are you scared? You know, what's going on? And I actually really gave me a little pause because I had to think about it. And that was the problem. I was thinking. I wasn't necessarily feeling, because there's a lot to do when you move from one part of the country, even though it's still in California, to another. It's 400 miles away. And there's a lot on my to-do list, and it's been keeping me from feeling. So this idea of pausing is really powerful. And the theme this week is really about trusting your inner wisdom. And I like to play with this idea around GPSs. Have you ever thought about how a GPS actually works? Maybe you just punch it into your device or your car, and then the next thing you know, you're where you needed to arrive. And I think when we're working with our inner wisdom, it works kind of like that. We decide where it is we want to be. We set some intentions, and we have these affirmations, and we get clear within ourselves, and then we allow our GPS, that inner GPS, or the God positioning system, to help us move forward. We, as a student of this particular philosophy, you're probably well aware that ours is to determine the what, not the how. Ours is to determine the what, not the how. And what that means is that it's important for us to be clear about what it is that is important to us, what it is that we want to set before us as a goal or as a destination, and then to just turn it over to that GPS. And that takes courage, right? It takes courage and faith. And it is a spiritual practice in and of itself to really set a course for ourselves and then to begin to walk that out one step at a time. I remember hearing Dr. Candace Beckett talk about the walking along our spiritual journey in that path, and how we put one foot in front of the other, and sometimes we can only see the 6 feet in front of us. Sometimes that's all you get. All you get is that general direction, and you have to just put one foot in front of the other so that you can continue to move in that direction of where it is, that destination that you have decided for yourself. One of my very favorite quotes is Socrates' quote, where the student asks Socrates, "How do I get to Mount Olympus?" And Socrates just looks at the student and says, "Just be sure every step is in that direction." And that is really what it takes. And sometimes when we put something out before ourselves, whether it's a new job or, dealing with a diagnosis or, changing relationships, whatever it is that's in transition for you, sometimes the big picture can be overwhelming. But we just need to put one foot in front of the other and move in that direction and trust and have faith that we are guided. And so this month in August, as both some of us personally are moving through big transitions, Elijah, myself, your leadership here, and possibly you have your own transition that's come up for you. I think that tends to happen when you are in spiritual community with each other. Oftentimes our path will reflect one another. And this community itself is in this transition period. And so I'm really encouraging you in these next week as we walk this out. We've been talking about it for a couple of months, I know. But we're walking it out now. And so as we walk it out, I encourage you to take that time to pause, to check in with your inner guidance system. And as I was thinking about coming up here to talk to you about this inner guidance system and this idea of trusting our wisdom as we walk things out, I was reflecting on the last 4 years and how I got to this point, in this moment, right now. And what I can tell you is that there was a point in my ministry where I was doing just this. I was pausing. I was looking at where I was with my ministry and on my journey, and I thought about my intentions and looked and said to myself, was it time to make a little adjustment? This doesn't seem to be exactly where I thought I would be, and do I need to make a course correction? And then your beautiful invitation of a sacred covenant landed before me. And the next thing I knew, I was moving across the country. And that was after 45 years of living in Maryland. So what I want to say about intentions and this idea of setting a course for ourselves is that sometimes it makes no sense on the surface. It looks a little crazy. It looks a little like, oh my God, really? That's a big move. But there was an inner guidance that brought me here, that brought me to this community. And I had some beautiful intentions that were really met here in this community over the last 4 years. And as I reflect on that, I was also reflecting on the journey that we have been on together. You know, the first year, when I arrived here officially in October of 2017, but my first time with you was in August of 2017. And when I arrived here, the first year that I was with you, it was a time for us to get to know each other, a time for us to begin to build trust. You had not had a minister for a while, and you'd had some rocky relationships with ministers I want to say recent, but it wasn't recent. It was over a long period of time. And so I knew that that first year was really about building those deep roots of trust and getting to know each other. And by the time we got to the fall of 2018, we began our, I've referred to them in the past as Adventures in Faith. We call it a pledge program, but it's an opportunity for us to go deeper with our spiritual practice, to really pause and to set a course for the next year. And so our first pledge program that we worked on together was a program around purpose, yours, mine, and ours. And we began to look at purpose, and we began to look at what was our why. What was it that brought us together? Why were we a spiritual community, and what were we doing with each other? And we had some fun things. We determined that the part of our why was the love that we felt for each other. Part of our why was being able to work together and to have those loving and trusting relationships and to deepen that. And so in that year we rolled into 2019, and we did our first divine dining. Do you remember that? Who had crab cakes with me? Right? Who had game night with me? And then we made rocks with Kaylee and had hikes and barbecues and all these wonderful little groups that came together to deepen that idea of connecting with community. It was beautiful. And it was absolutely an outgrowth of that program in the fall. And then in 2019, we began to look at our next pledge program and spiritual program that we were working with, and we came up with this idea of thriving together. We determined that that's what we wanted to do, that this community has had a reputation of being the little community that could. And we thought, oh, it's time to break that old mold of being the little community that could, and it's time for us to really thrive. And we moved through that period, and we came to this idea that it was time for a new story. And so that's what we set our intention for. And March rolled around in 2020, and it seems like not only this community, but the world needed a little bit of shaking up. So we had ourselves a global pandemic. And we had to change everything we did and how we did it. And you were gracious and supportive, and we created new teams that we'd been only talking about up until then. And we began to find new ways to connect and be in community. It's been quite a year, and when we came to the 2020 Pledge Program and looked at what it is we wanted to do the deep dive around, we knew that it was time to really do some deep appreciation. And so that was the Because of You campaign, where we had in the previous year, we'd had done that wonderful homecoming where we celebrated our legacy members, and we were 55 years old in 2019, and in 2020, we celebrated our now. We celebrated exactly where we were. And it seems like March is the time when whatever we're doing in the fall kicks in, because that was the time for me to do a little more regrouping. And I looked at those intentions that I had set when I came here, and you had helped me meet most of those. I wanted to be in a community that really loved each other and was connected. And I wanted to be in a community that was interested in collaborative and shared leadership. And I wanted to be in a community that was absolutely vibrant with technology and the ways that we could reach out. And all of those intentions were met. It was pretty amazing. But there were a few on my list that I didn't quite happen. I was still a part-time minister here, and I'd had a goal about being a full-time minister in 2022. And so another invitation came forward. And it was such a little step. All I did was apply. And then it was like, have you ever watched those videos where the dominoes are all set up in these amazing patterns, and somebody just walks up and pushes the first domino over, and then everything just rolls out? It's kind of how it's been this last 6 months. I would love to tell you that I have orchestrated this amazing transition, but all I have done, the only thing I had to do, was make a choice, to decide, to get clear about my intention, and then to walk it out in faith. That's living this philosophy, and that is how it works. And I will, to be honest, sometimes the transitions that we face are uncomfortable. They make us uneasy. We have to get out of our comfort zone. Sometimes they're painful. But if we're clear, and that's the spiritual practice that we do, getting clear. When we're clear, when we create that deep clarity within our soul and our body temple, it's like the Spirit sifting through it just shows up. And I have had that experience over and over again, and I really trust it. And so here we stand on the threshold of another transition. This fall, Reverend Elijah will lead you through some more programming. You'll set some intentions as a community. You'll begin to really look at what it looks like to inhabit a new story. And that's very exciting for me to watch us do this. And although I didn't want to admit this, I've realized that I was not the person to take you into the newness. And so I know without a doubt that Reverend Elijah is that person to take you into your next yet to be, and that it is just as wonderful as the experiences we've had in the past, but it'll be new, and it'll build on the legacy of the past, and it'll build on the power of the now. And it'll be what you all bring to it. My invitation for you as we walk this last week out, my sincere invitation to you is to really do some soul searching and some pausing about what it is you want in spiritual community. And then to support your new spiritual leader. Support him with your time and your love and your treasure. Support him with your ideas and your creativity, because I know he's got the energy and the enthusiasm. I know that he's got the power. I want you to recognize this is the part that's really hard for us, because the world is forever putting out a message to us of what it wants you for you. It's always putting out some kind of a vibration, what it wants for you. But it's our job to look away from whatever it is, the noises out there, and to allow what really wants to happen by means of you. It has to come through you. I found this really, really great quote from an Indian professor in India, not a Native American Indian, but a woman in India whose name is Vidya Hatagandhi, and she says this: human beings have 5 senses: sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. Spirituality is the ability to recognize that there is intelligence beyond the 5 senses. There is universal power that creates and governs everything within and beyond the worlds we know. And that power is omnipresent. We can surrender to this supreme intelligence through our awareness. We call this universal power by different names as per our individual faith practices. Spirituality makes things easier for us to go through the life's journey with all its ups and downs, and makes our lives happier. And I would add that it connects the dots, that it really shows us how to inhabit our 5 senses from a holistic place, from a complete place where they're all working together. And that is when we are aligned with our intention and we walk it out. It takes all of us. It takes all of us individually. It takes all of us as a community to really shift consciousness, to really inhabit change that is being called forth from the world right now. So my invitation to you is to investigate your intentions and to really inhabit your faith. Because when those 2 things meet, they become one, and then they manifest. I'm very excited for you as you walk out this next phase as a community, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the future brings. And I thank you for allowing me to be your spiritual leader for this brief time. I know that I was exactly where I needed to be, with the right people, in the right time, at the right space. And I trust that that beautiful vibration that we have created together of love and caring and connection and deep faith in this philosophy is only going to birth newness and possibility, and it's up to you. So thank you for letting me love you, and thank you for loving me back, and for being part of this community with me. It has been a highlight of my life. Thank you. And so I get to pray with you, because that's where it all happens. So let's do that right now. Let's take an inner breath that brings us back into that inner alignment with our soul, with our heart, with our mind, knowing that we are absolutely present with that one power and presence that is forever expressing itself in a myriad of ways. And so I know that each one here absolutely is connected with God, with Spirit, with that thing that makes the grass grow, and that each one of us is allowing to rise up through our consciousness, through our experience, through our minds and our hearts. We're allowing whatever it is that is ours to do to walk out through this transition. I know that that is coming forward, and that we are rising up to this wonderful occasion. And so I know as we rise up individually, we rise up together, and we together walk out our new story boldly, with courage, with faith, and with clarity. And that each one does their part, and that collectively we create. And we continue to change lives and be open to possibility and trust in the love that is so rich and deep here among us, between us, for ourselves, for our community. And I know that it is love that makes the way possible. It is love that illuminates, even if it's only those next few steps, so that we are always guided, we are always guarded, we are always directed. And it is with this deep faith and trust that I know this truth for myself, I know this truth for this community, I know this truth for your new spiritual leader, Elijah Christopher. I know this truth as it ripples outward into the Santa Cruz community, and that all are lifted up. So my prayer is that we simply move forward, that we allow ourselves to be used, and we use this power that is forever present, that is always carrying us forward, that always knows the way how that we can't quite see. And so it is in deep faith and gratitude that I simply anchor this prayer in the law, and it is the law that makes it so. So it is with a grateful heart that we simply anchor this prayer by saying together, and so it is.